So the theme this week, upon what can we build our lives that will never give way, that will never have the rug pulled out from underneath us? And imagine the value of finding that. So if you're going to build a house, maybe some of you have built a house, but the one thing you want to find is a firm foundation. You want to find ground that's not moving, in a sense, right? So if you build your house on something kind of shaky, sometimes there are less than honest contractors and developers. They'll just kind of slap some ground together and smush some dirt around, and it seems solid at the start, but as your house starts to give way, you realize that the foundation wasn't firm. So obviously we want to find something to build on that doesn't move. So what in this universe doesn't move? Well, energy is always moving. Energy is always vibrating. And a good definition of our mind is movement. Our minds are always moving. Have you noticed your mind is always up to something? It's always churning and vibrating and giving opinions and ideas and thoughts and impressions and attitudes and memories, and it's always moving. And other people's minds are moving as well. This is sort of like the kiddie pool of consciousness that we're all thrown into. But one of the great realizations and revelations of a spiritual practice is that while we have a mind, we are not our mind. If we think that we're our mind and our body and our worldly situations, then we really are in a situation where everything is always moving. And from that position, it seems as though that our peace and our happiness is the result of the correct, proper, appropriate arrangement of things. In other words, our minds are moving, the world is moving. We're in a vast maelstrom of situations, people, places, and things and relationships that are always moving. And things are peaceful and happy when all of that is arranged properly, when all of that happens through usually sufficient control and manipulation, and to some degree, a sense of selfishness in order to arrange everything the way that we like. Then happiness and peace move into us. And it's nice when everything is arranged properly to make that happen. And that usually lasts for somewhere between 13 seconds and about 4 days, right? On a really good stretch. But then something gives way, something moves. And when something moves, then the peace and the joy that was contingent upon the arrangement of the prior situation gives way. And we find ourselves in this over and over and over again. And there's two ways we can respond. We can simply go back to the painful process of trying to arrange everything perfectly so that we get our peace and our happiness back temporarily, or we can use any episode of having the rug pulled out from underneath us, especially the dramatic variations of that episode, to realize that we can't get there from here. With a mind that's moving in a world that's moving, if our peace and our happiness is contingent upon that, then we are building our house upon sand. But when we realize that we have a mind, but that we're not our mind, what happens when our mind slows down? Do we die? Does the world go away? No, something far larger appears, and it's called consciousness. Consciousness is what underlies our mind and our body and the world. Consciousness does not move. Consciousness is perfectly still. Consciousness is perfect presence. A quick metaphor would be the movie screen before the movie begins to flash on the screen. There's no movement. It's pure potential. It's quantum. It's the underlying ground state of being before it manifests into some sort of worldly thing. When we find this part of ourselves, when the mind becomes quiet, consciousness appears. And then what's the nature of consciousness? It's happiness and it's peace. When we find that happiness and peace, it then extends and radiates and ripples out into all of our situations. And that peace and happiness is not contingent upon arranging things. Curiously, the way that we arrange happiness and peace is by finding the non-movement of our heart and mind and soul. And it's a way of arranging without doing anything at all. And as I like to say, and as I like to think, when we find this perfect peace of mind, the world comes to us. We don't have to go out to the world. And no matter what happens in the world, no matter what situations change, no matter how the kaleidoscope turns, there's always this underlying, unshakable, unwavering presence of peace and happiness. And if we practice that on a daily basis over a long period of time, it becomes very stable and very dependable. It's the one thing that we can depend upon. So the topic this week is, what can we build our life upon that will never give way, that will never have the foundation kicked out from underneath us? And it may be a valuable question if you've ever been seriously shaken by life, and we all are, whether it's in large episodes or just, the small things during the day that agitate us. Whenever that happens, if we recognize that our mind is moving and that situations are fluctuating underneath us, and that by struggle and resistance and strain, that we are only amplifying the situation, we remember to drop back into that perfect place of peace and get out of the kiddie pool with all the other humans/kids who are kicking and screaming and biting and scratching in the pool, and thinking that we can ever arrange that in some way that will never move. Okay, we'll talk more about it tomorrow. What I wish and pray and intend for you today is the stilling or the quieting of your mind, so that that non-moving, vast ecstasy is revealed. All right, see y'all tomorrow.